Uh, Sorry about that. Alrighty, now we're good. So welcome everyone to today's prevention resources and education for parents presentation. Thank you for coming. I'm going to ask to please hold any questions until the end, and I'll be happy to address them. So, to begin, I am proud to represent Karen Treatment Centers. For 70 years, Karen has been a nonprofit leader in treatment and transforming lives of thousands of individuals and families impacted by addiction and mental health disorders. Our work is grounded in proven, comprehensive, and personalized behavioral healthcare solutions that support lasting recovery and whole person healing. I am part of the Karen's Educational Alliance team, and as the Educational Alliance has been providing substance use prevention and intervention as well, and these programs and services. We've been doing it for 35 years. And we also provide these services for students from kindergarten through college, and our programming is available in person, virtually, and also electronically. And to begin, let's watch this brief video to learn about what we do as in the Educational Alliance Department. All right. Well, today is all about awareness, not fear. This is today's objective, right? Parenting teens can feel overwhelming at times, especially with today's substance landscape. Today, we're going to focus on three goals. We'll focus on what to look for, which are the warning signs and risk factors, what we can do, what are the prevention strategies that actually work, and when to seek help, and where to go if we need that support. The goal is for you to leave here feeling informed, empowered, and reassured that prevention is possible. So let's start by having you think about your own childhood, right? Or your teen years. Sure, it's not that long ago. Do you remember how you spent your time or the means of how your communication was, how you used to communicate with friends and family members? How do you remember drugs and alcohol being talked about at that time? How were they consumed? As we move through this program, be aware of the differences between your personal experiences and what youth today may be experiencing. It is important to remember to look through it as a new lens, as trends and methods of consumptions and potency of many substances have changed since we were teens. So parenting comes with a lot of different roles, right? We know we carry a lot of hats as parents. And one on any given day, we might be a teacher, one day we're a coach, we're a chauffeur, even a counselor for our kids, a nurse, right? But one of the most important jobs as parents is keeping our kids safe. So while as also helping them grow into healthy, capable adults, prevention really isn't about controlling our kids. It's about guiding them and helping them learn how to make good decisions for themselves. And even though kids may push back against rules and boundaries, they still need them. So those boundaries will help them feel safe and supported as they grow and they learn. So it's important to remember that teen brains are still developing, and that plays a big role in how they make decisions. The part of the brain that develops earlier is the reward center. So that part is the one that responds to pleasure, excitement, and new experiences. Because it's very active during teen years, it can make teens more likely to seek out excitement or even take risks. So the part of the brain that develops last is the frontal lobe. This is the area responsible for logic, planning, decision making, and impulse control. This part of the brain isn't fully developed until the mid 20s. So sometimes teens may actually know they're taking risks, but they still choose to do it because their brain is wired to prioritize reward and excitement in that moment. So that's also why substance use during these years is especially concerning because drugs and alcohol can interfere with healthy brain development and increase the risk of addiction later in life. So when we look at caffeine, it's something we often overlook because it's legal and socially accepted, right? But it's important to understand how it does affect the teen's brain. So, according to Monitoring the Future 2025 study, daily use of energy drinks or energy shots is at near record highs among youth. About 18% in the eighth graders and 20% in 10th graders and 23% in 12th graders reported using them at least once per day in the last 30 days. So, caffeine works by blocking a chemical in the brain called adenosine, which helps regulate calmness or in sleep, right? So, at the same time, it increases dopamine, which is part of the brain's reward system. Because of that, it can lead to patterns where people begin to rely on it more and more. So some of the effects of caffeine include increased heart rate, increased anxiety, sleep problems, digestive issues. So if we didn't know, the recommended limit for teens is under 100 milligrams per day, which is about the amount of a small cup of coffee. The challenge is that many energy drinks exceed that amount in just one serving. And some teens are consuming multiple drinks a day. So while caffeine may seem harmless, daily energy drinks use among teens is actually near record highs, something as parents we don't realize. When it comes to alcohol, according to Monitoring the Future 2025 study, there's actually some encouraging news when it comes to alcohol use. Overall, alcohol use has steadily declined since the year 2000 across all grade levels. So in 2000, about 73% of 12th graders reported using alcohol in the past year. By 2025, that number dropped 41%. And in the 10th graders, it decreased by 65% to 24%. And when it came to 8th graders, it dropped 43% from 43% to 11%. So even though those numbers have improved, alcohol is still one of the most commonly used substance amongst teens. So alcohol affects the brain in stages. So it begins with lower inhibitions, which can make someone feel more confident and lose caution. Then it can move into memory impairment, which sometimes leading to blackouts. And as use continues, it can affect coordination, which impacts things like balance and reaction time. After that, you may see slurred speech, and in more serious situations, alcohol can slow breathing and heart rate, which can be very dangerous. So many teens see alcohol as less dangerous because it's legal for adults and socially accepted. However, the teen brain is still developing, which makes it more vulnerable to the effects of alcohol. Research has also shown that the earlier someone begins drinking, the higher the risk of long-term problems, including substance use disorder, which can later happen in life. When it comes to nicotine, also Monitoring the Future 2025 study has said that nicotine vaping rates have remained relatively stable among teens. About 9% of 8th graders and 14% of 10th graders and 20% of the 12th graders reported vaping nicotine in the past 12 months. So nicotine patches are also being used by some teens. The study found that 1% of the 8th graders, 3% of 10th graders, and 7% of the 12th graders reporting them using them in the past year. One of the biggest challenges we see is that many teens believe vaping is harmless, right? But that's actually a myth. Nicotine affects several important areas of the developing brain, including attention, memory, impulse control, and emotional regulation. So it can also increase anxiety and worsen mood regulated issues. So which many teens are already struggling with, as we know. Another concern is physically. Vaping can cause respiratory issues, fatigue, and other health concerns. And one of the most important things to understand is that nicotine is highly, highly addictive, especially for the developing teen brain as well. Another study from Monitoring the Future based on cannabis is the use amongst teens has remained fairly stable in recent years. Among 8% of 8th graders, 16% of 10th graders, and 26% of 12th graders reported using cannabis in the past 12 months. The study also found that some teens are using cannabis products made from hemp, such as Delta 8 THC, which can still have intoxicating effects. In the past year, about 2% of the 8th graders, 6% of the 10th graders, and 9% of the 12th graders reported using these types of products. Cannabis affects several areas of the brain that are responsible for learning, memory, and reaction time. Because of that, it can impact school performance, sports, and even driving safely. Research also shows that cannabis use is linked to an increased risk of anxiety, depression, and in some cases, psychosis, especially for young people whose brains are still developing. So, teens who regularly use cannabis are also more likely to struggle academically or drop out of school. And just like with other substances, starting at a younger age increases the likelihood of developing a cannabis use disorder later on as well. So, one important thing for parents to understand is that today's cannabis is much stronger than in previous generations. The potency levels are significantly higher. And that increase is, in strength can also increase the risk of addiction and mental health concerns. Research has also shown that teens who begin using cannabis before the age of 18 are up to 7 more times more likely to develop an addiction compared to those who start later on. The risks are even higher for anyone under the age of 25. So, because the brain is still developing during those years, this is a major risk. So, when we talk about cannabis today, it's important to recognize that this is not the same substance that many parents may remember from their own youth. Okay, it's not the same from the 80s and 90s. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about opioids. Opioids works to slow down the body system, right? Especially the central nervous system. So some common symptoms of opioids use can include drowsiness, confusion, nausea, and slowed breathing. When breathing slows down too much, it can become life-threatening. Opioids are also highly addictive, and the body can build tolerance very, very quickly. That means a person may need more of the drug over time to feel the same effects, which increase the risk of misuse and overdose. There are several reasons why teens may use or misuse opioids. Sometimes there's a perception that they're safe because they're prescription, right? They're prescribed by a doctor. Other times they may be easily accessible to them in the medicine cabinets at home. Some teens may misuse them because of pressure to continue playing sports because through an injury or because they believe the medication will help improve their mood or help them cope with stress. That's why education about safe storage and proper disposal of medication is so important in helping prevent misuse. I also want to share some encouraging news. Monitoring the Future study in 2025 also found that abstaining from substance use, meaning no use of alcohol, cannabis, or nicotine through vaping or cigarettes, is actually a historic high levels among teens. In eighth grade, about 91% of students reported not using any of these substances in the past 30 days. To put that in perspective, when this was just first tracked in 1991, the number was 69%. For 10th graders, about 82% reported no use in the past 30 days, compared to 51% back in 1991. And among 12th graders, about 66% reported no use in the past 30 days. That's just 1% below the record high of 67% from previous year, and a huge change from 24% when it was first tracked in 1976. So this is important because teens often believes that everyone uses it. Everyone's doing it. That's why I should do it or I can do it. But in reality, it's that most teens are actually choosing not to use substances. So sharing this message with your teen reinforce positive choices and reminds young people that using is actually the norm and it is cool. So, when thinking about substances, it's important to think beyond what a young person may be using and focus on why, right? Why are they using? We want to understand the bigger picture. What messages are they receiving culturally, right? At home, at school, from friends, on social media, or even their community? All of these influences can shape how a young person views substances. We also want to consider whether mental health may be playing a role. Some young people may turn to substances as a way to cope with stress, anxiety, depression, and other challenges they're experiencing. So instead of focusing on the behavior, it's important that we try to understand what may be driving them to do it because that helps us to respond in a more positive and effective way. So, research has shows that parents are the strongest influence on a child's decisions about substance use. Even when teens seem like they're not listening, they actually are. Your voice still matters. Your values, your expectations, and the way you communicate have more impact than peers, media, and trends. And remember, prevention doesn't require perfection. I'll repeat that. Prevention does not require perfection. What kids need most is connection, regular conversations, trust, and feeling supported. Okay? Effective prevention communication has a few key ingredients. It starts by being honest. Kids can tell where you're not, right? It always also means staying calm, even when topics feel very uncomfortable. We want to set clear expectations so young people know exactly where you stand. Keep the focus on health and safety, not punishment or fear. Aim to listen more than talking. All right. Teens open up when they feel heard. And remember, you'll need to repeat these conversations often. One talk isn't enough. That's not the magic solution, right? Prevention is an ongoing dialogue, not a one time event. So, resilience is one of the strongest protective factors against use substance. There are several practical ways adults can help build resilience. One way is teaching refusal skills. So young people feel confident saying no when it matters. Modeling healthy coping strategies. Show how you handle stress and in a positive way, right? And this way, I've always said we're like their mirror, right? They look at us and they're going to see how we act and they're going to mirror us. So we want to always keep that in mind. Encourage activities and goal setting, which help you build identity, purpose, and self esteem. Connect kids with positive peers and mentors who reinforce healthy choices and provide support. And when you are resilient, they're more prepared to navigate pressure and are more likely to make healthy decisions in challenging moments. So, talking about substances can feel a little awkward at times, and that's completely normal, right? One helpful approach is using open-ended questions. These kinds of questions encourage teens to think critically and help them feel heard rather than judged. So open-ended questions basically leads to a real discussion, not just the yes or no answers, right? Just like, your child comes home from school and how was school? Good. Okay. I hate it. Right. Just very brief, right? So, but the goal of these questions is to start a conversation and keep it going with time. So, conversation starters, if you're ready to begin conversations about drugs or alcohol, here are some gentle, effective prompts you can use. One of the things you can ask them, hey, if your friends wanted to try a drug, how would you handle that? Right? Another, what are you and your friends looking forward to this year? How would getting into trouble for alcohol use or drug use change your life or your plans? Those plans you and your friends have, right? These are open-ended questions whether it requires a response. So prompts like these help teens reflect on their values, their goals, and how choices fit the bigger picture. So many parents find when they ask, how was your day? The question is usually, like I mentioned, fine or good, right? That's normal. But there are ways to spark more meaningful conversation using those open-ended questions, okay? And that can help kids open up and share more. You don't need to ask all of them, right? Just choose one or two that fit naturally into your routine during dinner, a car ride, right? Or even bedtime. Remember, connection happens in small moments, not only during big or serious talks. So, when we talk about warning signs, it's important to remember that these can show up many different ways. Some possible indicators to pay attention may include mood swings, right? Withdrawals from the family or pulling away from usual activities, changes in hygiene, shift in sleeping or appetite, decline in grades, or loss of interest in school, secretive behavior, smelling as substances, or finding paraphernalia in the rooms. But here's the key message. One sign alone doesn't necessarily mean substance use. What matters most is time, especially when several signs appear together or seem out of character. These observations are starting point for support and conversations, not a conclusion. So if you're feeling concerned about your child or someone you care about, you're not alone. Many families experience this. So schools have strong supports in place. And school counselors, as well as school assistant programs like SAP, are excellent first points of contact. Early intervention can make a significant difference in a young person's well being and future choices. And most importantly, asking for help is strength, not failure. So reaching out shows you care, it shows courage and commitment to supporting your child. So many families feel unsure where to start, especially when it comes to conversations about substance use and support. That's why having trusted age-specific resources can make such a difference. So these tools offer reliable guidance on topics like how to talk with your child about substance use education. It's called e-prevention platform. This is one of our resources. And it's in a language where family can actually use. And it families support strategies that help prevent problems and strengthen relationships. And an important reminder, don't wait for a crisis. Explore these resources whenever you have time so you can be prepared long before the issues arise. Another resource we have is this anonymous tool. This is for your teen that can help youth reflect on their behavior and risks. It's helpful for both early concerns and simple curiosity. So, screening is often the first step toward awareness and support. So, this opens the door to honest conversations. Like I said, as anonymous, your child can go on it, click the link, and it will ask them a couple of questions, no personal questions, and then it will provide them resources. They can, according to their questions, how they answered the questions. We also, as Karen has developed a powerful parenting prevention in 3-minute video series, and this video series is 10 micro lessons providing parents with information and tips on topics that are key guiding their child to a healthy lifestyle and creating a substance-free youth culture within their family. Each lesson is presented by an expert from Karen Treatment Center's Education Alliance in 3 minutes or less. So it's available in English and also Spanish. We also have Karen's Conversations That Matter. This is a behavioral health strategies for building resilience in youth in a podcast series that explore issues that affect youth mental and behavioral health, and provides practical strategies for raising, nurturing, teaching, and encouraging children and teens to build healthy patterns that last a lifetime. And you can listen to it through Spotify and Apple Podcasts as you're driving in your morning, however you like. It's another resource for you. And like I said, it talks about many subjects, not just substance use. It also has behavior health and some of the trends that are going on as well that we may not be aware of. So we also can find Karen's Prevention Connection on Facebook and Instagram. These feeds offer tips and tools for parents and child servicing professionals on how to help build resilience in youth and help them how to avoid substances as well. So it's not only for parents, but also for youth. So we understand that parents and other caring adults play key roles in prevention and intervention of substance use amongst youth. So Karen created a resource kit filled with all these tools and information that can help you support children, teens, and young adults through a full continuum of care, from substance use prevention to recovery. So the kit includes virtual learning programs as well as a variety of substance use prevention resources in both English and Spanish as well. I want to thank you for your time and openness and commitment to your children. Please remember that prevention is possible, and parents, you make a difference. So, this is a time where you're open to questions. If you have any, I'm here open to questions. I also ask to feel free to reach out to me. Also, if you feel that you want to do it in a more personal way or confidential way, I have my email here where you can ask questions. Also, I would love if you can leave feedback on this form and let us know, because we're always willing to take your feedback and make our presentations better, and more information that you may need. So I will open the floor for questions. If there's, I'll stop sharing and open the floor for any questions if anybody has questions. No, answered all your questions during the presentations, which is awesome, which is what I like. Um, Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it.